Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. First things first, next week's video will be the monthly Q&A. If you have questions about martial arts, Xiu Dao and Qigong practice, please post them in the comments section or email me if you prefer to be anonymous. My email address is in the description. I will do my best to answer them. Just so you know, if a question deserves detailed discussion beyond the scope of Q&A, I will only provide a brief answer in the Q&A video and elaborate on it in a dedicated video in the future. In the last 2 weeks, I introduced an important concept, Chang Quan Duan and its application in Xing and Tai Chi. Today's video is the third video of this series and will wrap up the introduction of Chang Quan Duan along with further explanation and its applications in Bagua practice. But first, let's warm up with the Dao De Jing commentary and Xiu Dao. Today's sentence is Dao Fa Zi Ran, the last sentence of chapter 25 of the Dao De Jing. Chapter 25 is one of the most important chapters of Dao De Jing since in this chapter, Lao Tzu described the nature of Dao. Scholars of later generations after Lao Tzu would often quote sentences from this chapter to explain the Dao. This chapter starts with 2 sentences that are used to describe the origin of Dao. Lao Tzu said, quote, 有物混成，先天地生, end quote. Translation: There was something formed from chaos, which came into being before heaven and earth. End translation. In other words, Dao was something formless yet complete. What existed before heaven and earth. Then Lao Tzu used 4 sentences to describe what Dao looked like. Quote, 寂兮寥兮，独立而不改，周行而不殆，可以为天地母。End quote. Translation: It is motionless and fathomless. It stands alone and never changes. It pervades everywhere and never becomes exhausted. It may be regarded as the mother of the universe. End translation. Here, Lao Tzu said for the first time that Dao is the mother of everything in the universe, to express his philosophical belief that Dao generates everything. Then Lao Tzu explained the reason to call it Dao. Quote, 五部之名，强字之曰道，强为之名曰大。End quote. Translation: I do not know its name. One can call it Dao. The name of its powerful presence. One can call it the Great One. End translation. Here, Lao Tzu expressed that if forced to call it something, it would be called Dao, which was also expressed in the first chapter. Then Lao Tzu continued describing Dao by saying, translated quote, being great implies reaching out in space. Reaching out in space implies far-reaching. Far-reaching implies reversion to the original point. Therefore, Dao is great, the heaven is great, the earth is great, and the king is also great. They are the great force in the universe, and the sage king is one of them. End translated quote. In the end, Lao Tzu used 4 sentences to express the relationship between humans, earth, heaven, Dao, and the natural way. Quote, 人法地，地法天，天法道，道法自然. End quote. Translation: Man takes his law from the earth. Earth takes its law from heaven. Heaven takes its law from the Dao. The law of the Dao is its being what it is. End translation. In other words, humanity follows the nature of the earth. Earth follows the nature of the heaven. Heaven follows the nature of the Dao, and the Dao follows its own way, naturally. So, the last sentence of this chapter, which is also the most important concept introduced in this chapter, is 道法自然, or Dao follows the law of its intrinsic nature, which is a very profound way to express the nature of a Dao. In 修道 practice, it is very important to understand what 自然 is. Yes, 自然 is an important concept in Taoism, which means the natural way of acting, following the natural way, and so on. However, in the energy refinement process, 自然 means the intrinsic nature of Dao. So, what is the intrinsic nature of Dao? Well, it is prenatal energy. So, following the principle of 道法自然, or the Dao follows its being what it is, means that one has to let prenatal energy work instead of postnatal energy. Regarding the difference between postnatal and prenatal energy, I have explained this concept in many prior videos. So, this sentence, the last sentence of chapter 25, tells us in 修道 practice, we have to work on prenatal energy. That's why I said in the beginning that this chapter is one of the most important chapters in Dao De Jing. With that, let's move on to the main topic for today, the Chang Quan Duan Da in Bagua practice. Topics covered in today's video include: first, Chang Quan Duan Da reviewed; second, further introduction of Chang Quan Duan Da; third, Chang Quan Duan Da in Bagua; fourth, how to practice Chang Quan Duan Da in Bagua; fifth, principles of Chang Quan Duan Da in Bagua; sixth, misperception; seventh, demonstration; and eighth, takeaways. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Topic 1. Chang Quan Duan Da reviewed. 2 weeks ago, I introduced the term Chang Quan Duan Da, or long fist and short strike. As with other culture-related terms and expressions, the meaning of this term has changed over the course of history. Originally, Chang Quan Duan Da described the length of a routine. A long routine would be called a long fist, while a single movement would be called a short strike. Later on, its meaning changed to describe type of posture. A static posture such that a hand extended far from body would be called long fist, and the hand close to the body would be called short strike. Finally, its meaning changed further to describe a dynamic approach, and is the most popular meaning nowadays, differentiating between two approaches of a movement: the extended approach and the contracted approach to dealing with an attack. I also explained the importance of understanding Chang Quan Duan Da. Comparatively speaking, the short strike fighting method is more impactful in martial applications. I elaborated on this in the last 2 videos in the context of Xing and Tai Chi. I also pointed out that each approach has its own advantages and should be practiced together. As mentioned in prior videos, A martial term or proverb is very often designed to explain a specific practice issue. A prime example of this phenomenon is the term 长拳短打. From the introduction of a 长拳短打, we can realize that a specific term has to be explained and interpreted by considering its context and background, or else misperceptions and misunderstandings will definitely occur. For example, as mentioned moments ago, the meaning of the term 长拳短打 has evolved over time, originally to describe the length of the routine, then to describe a static posture, and finally to describe a dynamic approach. So, I have introduced this term based on Xing and Tai Chi. Links are in the description. Now, let me introduce 长拳短打 further in the next topic. Topic 2. Further introduction of 长拳短打. Now, let's analyze 长拳短打 further. At face value, it may seem as if this term only talks about the approaches of a hand or fist action, since 拳 is a fist and 打 is a strike, and very often they both imply hand movements. Is it a correct statement? Well, it depends. Yes, 拳 means fist, but at the same time, 拳 also means martial art. For example, 形意拳 means 形意 martial art, but not 形意 fist. In other words, 拳 or fist means strikes executed by any body part, since it indicates a martial movement. Also, the term 打 means strike, and any body part can be used to strike, not only the hand. Since any body part can be used in a martial application, this term can be used to describe a movement. Based on the third meaning mentioned already, 长拳短打 is nowadays commonly used to describe a dynamic approach. The first two characters, 长拳, means the big and long movement approach, while 短打 means the small and short movement approach. So, any martial movements initiated by any body part can be explained and analyzed using the term 长拳短打. For example, typically, an elbow movement is a short movement, but can also be used as the long movement if the elbow strikes further when combined with the long step, forming a big movement. At the same time, a kick normally is the big movement, but can also be used as a short strike if it's a short kick. To summarize, any body part can be used for both a big and a long movement method as well as small and short movement method, depending on the nature of a movement. Now, let's analyze 长拳短打 a step further. Sometimes, a movement can be a combination of a long movement and a short movement executed by different body parts. For example, one can step forward with the long step, considered a long movement, and at the same time use an elbow strike on the opponent with a short movement, considered a short strike. Now the question becomes, is this movement overall a long fist or a short strike approach? Well, if we only consider the elbow strike as the strike, then it would be a short strike approach. However, if we consider the big forward stepping as part of the strike, then it should be the long fist approach. Since we take the whole movement into account when analyzing a strike, and the long step is the key part of the whole movement. This martial movement is a long phase approach. Actually, an effective martial movement is very often a combination of simultaneous foot stepping and hand striking. We can see this type of martial fighting strategy everywhere in a well-developed style. Again, stepping and kicking are parts of a martial attack as well, and should not be ignored and excluded from the explanation and application of this term. So, how is Chang Quan Duan Da applied in Bagua? That brings us to the next topic. Topic 3. Chang Quan Duan Da in Bagua. Before elaborating on the Chang Quan Duan Da practice in Bagua, let me explain Bagua training more. For any Bagua style, the main stepping pattern is to focus on circular or circle walking practices. Walking is just the continuous circular walking in stepping along a circle, while circular walking is just the stepping pattern walking in part of the circle. So, by nature, circle and circular walking follow the same principle and practice used by old Bagua schools to develop the Bagua body method and body structure for use in martial applications. Furthermore, a Bagua routine, for example, the Bagua 8 big palm routine, is the practice in which one makes many smaller circles locally along a big circle. In other words, there are many small sections of a Bagua big palm routine, and each small section actually making small circle locally. Very often, big movements are used to connect each small circle section together into a routine. So, the key practice of a Bagua 8 big palm routine is to connect many small circular walking sections together. As a result, key Bagua techniques are contained in each small circle walking section, and their connecting movements and those connecting movements are usually big movements. Even though each small and big movement serves specific application purposes, some styles, especially Cheng Youlong and Cheng Youxin's Bagua, focus on the small circle and short range movement practice, giving the effectiveness of a small strike carried by small circle walking sections, identified a long time ago. Any martial art practice is the deliberately designed training method. As practitioners of later generations, it's our duty to understand and preserve those concepts and pay attention to them in practice and not dilute them due to a lack of traditional knowledge and training. Now, let's talk about Bagua stepping a bit further. There are mainly 3 types of Bagua stepping in terms of stepping direction: straight stepping, inward stepping, and outward stepping. When the foot steps forward without turning, it is called 直行步 or straight stepping. When the foot turns inward and towards the other foot, it is called inward stepping or 扣步. When the foot turns outward and away from the other foot, it is called outward stepping or 摆步. Here the word towards or away means overall stepping trace. The first type of stepping, straight stepping, can be used as a long fist or short strike depending on the situation. For example, stepping forward with a big step and an extended hand strike would be a long fist method. For the second method, the inward stepping, very often a short striking method is applied since the power used in executing the hand strikes is usually very short. In this situation, lower dantian turning is the body power mechanism used for martial power generation. For the third method, the outward stepping method can be either long-fist or short strike method, depending on the stepping length. A big step would involve a long fist method, and the small step will involve a short strike method. We can see that the Bagua stepping method is the determining factor for a long fist or a short strike method used in an application. So, it is not that easy to analyze Bagua on the topic of long fist and short strike due to the unique stepping pattern carried by the style. But following this method makes it much easier to understand the martial strategies behind the hand strike and stepping methods. So, how should you practice Chang Quan Duan Da in Bagua? That brings us to the next topic. Topic 4. How to practice Chang Quan Duan Da in Bagua. To practice Chang Quan Duan Da in Bagua, we have to pay special attention to the different Bagua stepping practices, as they are a key factor in determining whether a long fist or short strike method is more appropriate to the hand movements. So, the first step is to understand how to differentiate between the types of coordination between the hand and the step of a movement, as explained in the last section, where I talked about the 3 types of stepping patterns. It is worth noting that when applying a short strike method, Bagua uses elbow strikes more often than palm strikes. It may not be that obvious in the form or routine practice. Regardless, it is a very important aspect of Bagua short strike method training. Very often, martial art effectiveness lies in the subtle movement of a style. It is also important to know that most styles of Bagua practice different levels of body height. For example, some branches use a really low body posture with feet wide apart. In this situation, body weight shifting is usually a necessary step in practice. So, timing becomes a key aspect in this situation since it reflects the coordination between hand movement and weight shifting, which is usually the moment when the hand strikes occur during weight shifting. As mentioned in the previous section, Bagua routine practice, especially the 8 big palm routine, involves the practice of many small circle stepping methods on a big circle, and small circle stepping usually is the moment when a short strike executes, which is the martial strategy that makes Bagua an effective style. So, a practitioner should be able to identify those short strikes executed in small circle walking and practice them individually with different levels of speed, martial power, and so on, in order to develop Bagua martial energy. To summarize, one has to understand the concept of a long fist and short strike method used in different Bagua walking patterns in order to coordinate hand movements effectively with stepping practice, which utilizes the unique characteristics of the Bagua system. Now, let me introduce one important principle used in the practice of Chang Quan Duan Da in Bagua in the next topic. Topic 8. Principle of Chang Quan Duan Da in Bagua. I'd like to introduce one principle based on the concept of Chang Quan Duan Da He Yi, or the integration of long fist and short strike as one. It is Chang Jie Duan Da. Let's first break it down. Chang means long, Jie means reach, intercept, representing hands intercepting or reaching the opponent's hand or any other body part. Duan means short, Da means strike. Put together, Chang Jie Duan Da means that in Bagua application, the long fist method is suitable to reach the opponent's body part, and then a short strike will be executed following up on the reaching movement. I created this proverb since this principle is especially important and practical in Bagua application. Let me explain. We all know that when working on Bagua circle walking, the extending hand is aimed at reaching the opponent's body parts. For example, the hand. However, reaching the opponent's body part is just the first step. The follow-up strike is more important in terms of martial effect. Very often, Bagua practice will apply a short strike energy after reaching the opponents with the long fist method. So, executing a short strike energy to the opponent while both parties' body parts are still in physical contact is a commonly used Bagua fighting strategy. Even more interesting, a Bagua practitioner should be able to execute the Bagua energy while in a constant walking state, which requires long-term practice. So, being able to identify an opportunity to reach the opponent's body part with the long fist method and then following up with the short strike is the commonly used method in Bagua application, which is an important Bagua application principle. I will elaborate more on it in the future. Now, let's debunk a common misperception of Chang Quan Duan Da practice in Bagua in the next topic. Topic 6, misperception. Chang Quan Duan Da is not so popular in the Bagua community. Regardless, misperceptions related to Chang Quan Duan Da are not rare at all. For example, some people believe that Bagua practice is about palm strikes and there are not many short strikes in Bagua. This is a misperception and let me debunk it today. First of all, palm strike or not has nothing to do with whether it is a long fist or short strike at all. In other words, a short strike can be applied by a palm strike depending on the shape of the hand. Yes, it is very obvious that there are many long fist-oriented movements in the Bagua practice, but very often, long fist-oriented movements are primarily aimed at reaching the opponent's body. With the constant walking practice as Bagua's unique characteristics, the follow-up strikes are actually a must. And very often, the follow-up strike will be a short strike, especially when using a short forward stepping or short 执行步, inward stepping or 扣步, and small outward stepping or small 摆步. More importantly, as explained previously, many strikes, especially applying the 扣步 walking pattern, are short strikes. Please keep in mind that normally, since Bagua focuses on circular walking or just circle walking, whenever there is the 摆步 or water walking, it will normally be followed by a 扣步 or inward walking. And inward walking is the perfect time to execute a short strike. Now, let me demonstrate a Bagua exercise to illustrate Chang Quan Duan Da practice in 八卦 in the next topic. Topic 7. Demonstration. Today, I will demonstrate a small 八卦 exercise. It is one of the 6-fold Cheng style palm. The name of this movement is 没身顶肘 or elbow strikes while body turns. It is used to practice the long and short strikes of 八卦. Okay, 没身顶肘 slow motion. Now, a little bit faster. Topic 8. Takeaways. First, Chang Quan Duan Da reviewed. Based on what I have introduced in those 3 videos, the meaning of a term very often changes in history. So, to fully understand the term, context and background information is important. The meaning of Chang Quan Duan Da illustrates this phenomenon. Second, further introduction of Chang Quan Duan Da. Different body parts can all be used as a fist in 八卦 application, especially the stepping method used in 八卦 practice, which makes this style unique in terms of martial strategy. 3. 长拳短打 in 八卦. Different stepping method used in 八卦 makes analysis of the 长拳短打 concept important in understanding 八卦 practice. 4. How to practice 长拳短打 in 八卦. Being able to identify which body method and stepping pattern are more suitable to short and long strikes is critical to reaching an advanced level of 八卦 practice. Fifth, principle of 长拳短打 in 八卦. 长接短打 long fist method is suitable to reach the opponent's body part, and then a short strike will be executed following up on the reaching movement. 6. Misperception. Some people believe that 八卦 practice is about palm strikes and there are not many short strikes in 八卦. Remember, this is a misperception. Actually, there are many short strikes in 八卦depending on how you practice it. Make sure to check out the demonstration section for a better idea of long and short strikes in 八卦 practice according to the concept of 长拳短打. That brings us to the end of today's video. A quick reminder to send me your questions for next week's Q&A. Thanks for watching, see you next time, and enjoy your practice.